appreciate the sunglasses.
Just if you get twist it up again, just think about the good things.
Go into my safe space behind my sunglasses.
Put on your sunglasses for the rest of the show, Mike. All right, we are live.
Oh, we're live.
Boom.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Dirty Mo Media's YouTube channel. We're recording the Dale Jr. Download, which will be out later tonight on all of our platforms. You can go to Dale Jr. or you can go to Dirty Mo Media on Twitter and Instagram to figure out when we're going to release later tonight. Also, don't forget about the TV show tomorrow, NBCSN, 5 o'clock Eastern. We got some questions for Ask Junior presented by Nationwide. Let's go.
We do. First up, we got a lot of questions about the race this weekend, but here's an interesting one from Patty James. Have you ever had a weekend like Alex Bowman did this past weekend, and how were you able to handle it?
You know, I don't know if I've ever tore up both cars in the same weekend like that, but I remember I kept going back to Alan Kulwicki. He did that at Dover when he won the championship during his championship years in the early 90s. He wrecked both cars at Dover. I don't even know what they did to get a third car ready. I don't know if they had to borrow one or repair the first car or what. But I think it during that process, everybody thought for sure that was the end of Alan Kulwicki in the championship battle. But he came back. He got a reasonable finish that day or that weekend. Ended up working his way back into the points race. And by Atlanta, he was sitting there with an opportunity to win it. And when the others had trouble around him, he ends up winning the championship. And it was a miraculous championship for a team like his. And I think that you have to look at Dover at that particular race as one of the most difficult parts of the season for them, where they faced that adversity head on and made it work. And I kept thinking about that for Alex and Greg Ives, thinking about that moment and how the integrity that Alan Kulwicki had and the unity and bond that his team had, the leadership that he had at his business is what got them through that weekend. And watching Greg walking around in the garage reminded me of that. Greg was orchestrating the team preparing that car, that third car that they borrowed from Jimmy Johnson. Greg was in there working, and other guys as well within that team were, getting things organized and helping. JR Motorsports employees were there helping, from what I was told. So it was all hands on deck, and they got through the weekend, got a reasonable finish out of it, and something I think that they could be pretty proud of. When that race started, Alex was not good. He was not moving forward, didn't have speed, and they figured out a way to get a top 20 finish out of that. Sure, they probably wanted more. Sure, they thought they could get more at some points in the race, but still, I text Greg. I said, these are the weekends you love. I said, you don't want them all the time, but these are the weekends where you get to do a little bit of the work that you typically don't do, that you miss doing, like him being in there working, wrenching on the car himself. You don't get that opportunity. The crew chief can't do that. He has other responsibilities. He does not go in there and work on the car. They have mechanics to do that. But in that moment, it kind of takes you back to your roots when you worked on the car, when everybody did whatever it took to get to the racetrack. Everybody pitched in. So it was hot, miserable, and they wouldn't want to do that all the time. But I know those guys figured out a way to come out of there with a great story to tell. It wasn't a miserable experience that they'll never want to relive.
I was thinking about Bowman, feeling bad for him in the moment. He ran into somebody on pit road, didn't he? Was it like Eric Jones
race,
or somebody? Yeah. And now when you're driving somebody else's car and you had that contact, that has to be a miserable feeling.
I don't think he thinks about it like that.
Maybe not, but I'm just saying that's what I thought about. I'm like, God, now he's driving somebody else's car, and if you wreck it, man, that's got to be some sort of.
The backups typically aren't as respected, for lack of a better word, and it's in that trailer, and it's not on the racetrack as a primary for a reason.
I got you.
You don't bring your second best primary as a backup. Mm-hmm. The backups tend to stay in the haulers sometimes for multiple events, and it's just a car that I'm okay if it's in that hauler for a few weeks. All our good stuff's out here on the shop floor, getting worked on, getting tuned up for the next race. We know where every car is going for the next several weeks. That backup's just kind of traveling up down the road, and it's just a safety net. And it's also Rick Hendrick's car. It's not Jimmy's car. Right. It's not Kevin Meander's car. It's Rick's car. And so if I was to borrow a car from another team, I'd say, hey, thanks, Chad Knaus or whoever it is, but I know really where that car came from and who's responsible for it. So I think that the comfort level, I guess, of using that car was probably pretty high for Alex and those guys.
Hunting and Fishing in God's Country is weighing in on YouTube, and he wants to know, hey, Dale, what is the funniest thing you have ever seen happen at a race?
Well, that's pretty broad. I don't know, man.
Well, 1998. It was a funny day.
Yeah, boy, this funny thing happened.
An inchworm on my car.
I don't know, Mike. You might have to help me on that one because you went to a lot of races back then. For the first half of my career, pretty
Funniest
much.
Thing man,
It's a good question.
It
Yeah.
is, but I need a little time to think on that
Yeah,
one.
let's think about it. Let's come back
Answer
to it.
the next one. I'm going to keep thinking on that one.
All right, we're going to go back to New Hampshire. We're getting a lot of questions about that. What are your thoughts on crew chiefs and spotters encouraging drivers to play rough if necessary in order to gain
That's
position on
great.
track? I heard a lot about that this weekend.
Yeah, so we had some spotters and crew chiefs during the Xfinity race encouraging their drivers to be more aggressive and stop, use the bumper if you need to when you're in that, in certain situations. I don't love to hear it. I never loved to hear that as a driver. Listen, not everybody's going to agree with this opinion. That's totally fine. I think that whatever you are, whatever your aggressiveness is going to be your decision. And it's whatever you're comfortable with doing. And you're either an aggressive personality or you're not. Some guys race their entire career without being aggressive and do it great. Some guys are very aggressive and do it great. It really comes down to who you are inside as an individual. And I don't believe that you can implore or change or alter that part of somebody's personality with a few words on the radio. Now, you want to encourage your guy to look, man, don't waste so much time trying to get around this guy. If you got to lean on him a little bit. It's New Hampshire. It's we race here like we race at the other short tracks. It's okay. That kind of thing I think is fair. Like Harrison Burton early in the race. He's running tight lines around the bottom of the racetrack, not really impeding the guy on the outside at all. I would rather him go up there and impede that guy. Try to take that lane, try to take that position and force that guy to have to give it to him. TJ would say on the radio to me, take what you need. Mm-hmm. That was encouragement to do whatever it takes to take the position. You have the ability and you're in position to take the groove. Run where you want. But to talk to a driver and say, I need you to use the bumper or move this guy out of the way, I don't like that. It comes down to the driver's decision to do it if he wants to or not. If he doesn't feel like he wants to do it, if he doesn't want to race that way, that's his choice. And I'm not saying anybody, I'm not calling names or I can't even think back in my mind and listening if anybody even said that, like hit this guy, go run over this guy, move this guy. I've heard that in the past. I've heard it, especially at the lower ranks when you got inexperienced spotters or crew chiefs or guys that are feisty and aggressive by nature. They tend to hop on the radio and fire into the driver and be like, "Don't take any crap. Go out there and hit him. Run over him in this corner. Go take this guy out." Even. I don't encourage that. I don't like that. So I think you got to leave it up to the driver. Encourage him to be aggressive in how he drives and passes, but you can't tell a guy that he needs to use the bumper, or you can't. Maybe those are conversations you have outside of the car. Like you get together during the week and you sit down and say, "Hey, man, do you move him out of the way in the next situation and try to pick that driver's brain?" But while they're out there in the heat of the battle, man. Cindric, I think, was the radio communication that we were listening to. And he's a young guy, and he was wild as a alley cat when he first started. And he's kind of calmed down and starting to, put together pretty clean races and pretty solid races. And I just hate to see him sort of get frayed again and get sort of off track, and because he's got this sort of path to trying to improve himself as a race car driver, and I'd hate to see that change.
All right, one more question real quick. Dustin B. Hey, Dale, what trophy is behind you next to the Elvis statue?
Sportsman Trophy, Greenville.
Yeah, Ralph Earnhardt, Greenville Pickens Sportsman Race. I don't even know what went.
What year is it? 58 or I don't know.
57 it looks like. Yeah, 1957. I got a handful of Ralph's trophies. Some of them, I don't know if we got it. We got maybe one or two more in here, but Mamaw had this. Mamaw, who's on the show, had this front room in her house that had a lot of shelving and a ton of trophies on it. And she since remodeled her house and taken all that down. And a lot of different people in the family got different trophies and so forth. And I got a nice little collection of Ralph's stuff. Yeah, his I think his 1956 championship sportsman trophies over at DEI, and there's 2 other trophies over there at DEI that I'd love to get my hands on, but I don't know if I ever will.
All right, guys, that is it for Ash.
Well, we had one. We had the one. Did we come back to the funniest thing that we ever had?
Yeah. All right. Well, I was trying to think. I was trying to zero into maybe a Tony Stewart media story. I always got tickled over his dealings with the media, but I can't think of something that
Any
just jumps out.
Or anything?
Huh?
Morgan
pranks?
Shepard falling off with the roller skates.
Now that's funny.
Yeah.
But I saw
Even
that.
though I love him so much.
I didn't see that.
It's a great video on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it on YouTube.
That's
I
the
didn't
only
see it in
place I
person.
saw. Man, how are we not thinking of some funny stuff? I mean, we've been doing this a million years.
I know. It's such a broad question.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully we'll come up with something.
Maybe we'll come back next week and give us a week to think on it.
We'll be thinking on that one.
Thanks for tuning in to Dirty Mo Media's YouTube channel. Again, remember, subscribe, listen to the podcast. Appreciate you guys. Thanks Nationwide for sponsoring this segment of the show, the Ask Junior segment. We'll see you guys next week.